Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, Ben is not able to join us. He's still in the throes of moving. I don't think he's going to have his internet hooked up until Friday, I believe is what he was saying earlier here when I was talking to him. However, tonight, Melissa is joining me, and we do have a good topic here for you tonight. And funny enough, this was the topic that Melissa herself had suggested to us in response to an episode that we had done a little while ago, quite a while ago now. Ben and I had kind of touched on the subject of, nature and getting out there, being good for you, resetting your batteries and stuff like that. And anyway, Melissa had overheard some of it, and she's actually way more in depth to some of this stuff, and she'll tell you a little bit about her background in that and all that good stuff anyway. But tonight, episode 178, entitled The Therapeutic Benefits of Nature with Melissa, and I'm going to turn it directly over to you, Melissa, because like I said, this is kind of your baby, and yeah, by all means.
Hi guys, and thanks for having me on again. I think I was here 2 weeks ago and we mentioned that I would probably be popping back with a bit of a ramble about the therapy of nature. And here I am to do it. So I'm glad to be here and thanks for having me.
No worries. So when we do talk about the therapeutic benefits of nature, that's a tongue tire for a person with dyslexia. Anyway, what do you mean by that, Mel? Like, try to clarify a little bit about which direction we're going to be going with this. I mean, there is I guess more specifically, when we think about the benefits of nature, we automatically look at the exercise benefit, getting out there, we're getting in shape, losing weight, and all that good stuff of it. But there's a lot more to it, right?
Right. So we know that spending time outdoors is great exercise. It's also the perfect source of vitamin D, and it offers enriching social opportunities for human contact and for a sense of community, all things that are very important to our well-being as humans. But experts do agree that ideally spending 2 hours or 120 minutes in nature, which can either be in one block or even spread out through like 15-minute increments on various days through the week, has proven health benefits. So I'm not here to give health advice, but I am here to tell you about all of the wonderful things that studies show that time in nature can do for our bodies. Oh. And then we can talk about some activities that we can do that can further increase those therapeutic benefits.
Okay, sounds great. And I just want to say hello to Steve there. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Hi,
I do
Steve.
see you in the comments. So Mel, before we jump into this too deep, why don't you, I don't think you've ever officially told us a little bit about yourself, and seeing this episode is a little more geared and oriented towards one of your, I don't want to say specialties, but areas of interest, potentially. When it comes to like education and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you? That way our folks out there, our listeners, kind of know what they're getting from this. You're not just Joe Blow that's randomly pulling stuff out of the air, much like Ben and I sometimes do, and rely on our own testing and whatnot. You actually have a little bit more insight on this.
Right. So I'm not a health professional, but what I am is an early childhood educator. So I have a lot of training about the benefits of play, especially in nature environments for children. So I do have that background. And then beyond that, I've moved to specializing with neurodivergent children. So individuals with neurodiversity, all kinds of different diagnoses. So there's a lot of these benefits that really coincide with other differences in neurological kind of manifestations in bodies, and how to best help regulate the systems and accommodate various needs. All of these things that can be done when they're done in nature actually have an increased impact for the good on our health, both as children and then leading into adulthood.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more clarification to background and Melissa being able to apply some of the stuff she's going to be talking about, as many of you folks know, and you've probably seen stroll in through some of the topics that Ben and I have done, our daughter actually is, what's the correct term,
So she's neurodivergent,
That's the one.
Specifically she's autistic.
Yeah, so that was one of the major factors. Not that it was the only factor. As she said, she did have a background in early childhood education. But that was one of the things that spurred you in the direction of neurodivergence and actually looking into or investing more time into a lot of these things. So just that's once again just summing up a little bit of the background there. So
Right.
yeah.
I've moved because we took such an interest in learning about neurodiversity within our own family. I've applied it to my work since then, and I've actually moved on to actually speaking to and training other educators on neurodiversity and how to make their classrooms more accommodating and how to implement play practices, especially in nature, that are beneficial to neurodiverse children. So I lead other educators. Next year, I'll be working on professional development for teachers in schools in our province. And I also speak at the province level table for educators on this topic and many more. So I do have quite a bit of random credentials in this topic that it would take forever to go on about. But yeah.
Yeah, so in short, she knows what she's talking about.
I try.
It's, or at least she has a background in the ability to be able to take this information and redistribute it back out to you folks in such a way that it actually is researched. It's not just random information. You know what I mean? And I think that was my main point there. But anyway, getting on to topic. Now, we did talk about the therapeutic, or with the title of the episode. I am going to stumble over that a half a dozen times. But anyway, the title of the episode, The Therapeutic Benefits of Nature. So we did talk about the known ones, like you're getting out there, you're getting exercise, you're losing a little weight, and you're being in nature. That's all great. But I didn't know you wanted to talk about some of the additional psychological benefits to being out there in the woods and some of that stuff too, right?
Yeah, so there's physiological and psychological advantages to spending time outdoors. There's actually 5 kind of key physiological or psychological, whichever way you want to say it.
Let's go physiological.
Benefits to being in nature that I've kind of identified and worked into categories over the last little bit. So I will go through them, but we can certainly stop and talk about it at any point. And if anyone has questions or if you want to add to something that we're saying or give an example of how it might have helped you, you're of course certainly welcome to do that if you're joining us here on our live stream. If you're listening on the podcast, obviously you can still reach out to us at Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures, and I'm always available to answer questions in the background, even if I'm not on the episode. So never be shy to jump in and ask.
It's definitely one of those things. She may not always be on the screen, but I definitely know where to find her.
In the room next door. So one of the main physiological benefits for exposure to nature in general is that it actually lowers our blood pressure and reduces our stress levels. So studies show that there is a reduction in blood pressure overall when that kind of 120 minutes a week time spent outdoors is kind of met. So you can spend less time than that outside, but over the research, it's really shown that that's kind of the ideal peak to hit, that 2 hours a week, whether it's 2 hours all at once or spread it over whatever you want to do it. If you do that, you will see a reduction in blood pressure, which I just thought was really interesting because that's a common health problem for a lot of people.
Well, it most definitely is. And I mean, I don't think it's any secret or anything like that. North America over the last few years, the average weight of the individual is going up because generally we're getting a little bit more sedentary with our lifestyle. We have a lot more desk jobs where we're hooked into technology like this. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just the reality of the world we live in. And it's kind of making us not get out there and do as much. So if nothing else, you're going to get that benefit of getting out there and enjoying nature a little bit, plus blood pressure and stuff like that. It's the silent killer, right? I mean, a lot of people in North America and Canada, they struggle with blood pressure issues, and they may not even know they have issues like that. So it's definitely a good key for you to get out there, even preventative, if you don't have any kind of issues with it yet.
And that's the thing, is that all of these benefits are really interrelated or connected. So you're saying, like, exercise is really great for our body and obviously will help lower blood pressure. But what I'm saying is that even just sitting in nature for 2 hours a week can reduce your blood pressure. So exercise is an added benefit on top of it. It's an activity that you can do in nature that gives you enhanced benefits. But just being in nature actually has this effect on our bodies. So it can be really beneficial to a lot of people. And the second part of that was reducing stress. So a part of that is blood pressure. Stress and blood pressure are very related. They're very linked together. But if you just have the stress side of it, it's interesting to note that time spent in nature reduces both your cortisol and your adrenaline levels, which are related to stress. Those are your stress hormones. So those come down, your stress level comes down, and that has a lasting effect for the duration of the week until you get on to your next 120 minutes next week.
So just a quick comment here from Steve as he's in the comments. I want to voice it there for him. For me, a big part of getting out into nature is the idea of unplugging from technology. And I mean, we're no strangers to that here in Atlantic Bushcraft. We say that all the time. It's a great time to get out. You just unplug. You reset yourself. Gets away from that. And yeah, I think you
it's
actually have some
literally
notes
my
there.
next point. I'm so excited you said that.
So the next thing Steve said here, personally, I spent a ton of time on the phone. Others, especially those now working remotely. And that's just kind of what I was getting to. Like, not only has technology kind of made us a little bit more stationary in our lifestyles, COVID over the last couple of years has been really a big hit on a lot of people's, I don't want to say motivation, but ability to get out there and do things.
Well, I mean, look at me. I've gone from being in a classroom environment with children all day, outdoors, doing activities, to this summer I've taken a backup role to my administration. So I'm working from home on my computer all summer this summer, which is a huge change for me. It's something I've never done before. And I'm noticing the lack of just being outdoors. So it's absolutely a trend that's happening in our society right now, with people working from home, working remotely, working on screens instead of in person and outdoors. It's a huge effect on all of us. And Steve absolutely hit my next point, which is the benefits of green light over blue light. So like you said, all that time spent on screens emits the blue light, which interacts differently with our eyes and our body chemistry than does green light, which can actually be used as a therapy. You can do green light exposure therapy to help you with a variety of different ailments and what have you. But just being outdoors, having that green light access instead of the blue light is actually one of the main contributors to all of the benefits that we're going to talk about.
So another comment he just said here, I really appreciate people who basically refuse to listen to music while camping. And I mean, that is one way to look at it, a complete unplug. We kind of do a mix of both. We listen to music. We had the music out in the boat today.
Yeah.
I mean, no big boom box or anything like that.
We bought
a tiny little Bluetooth speaker.
Shower speaker.
But I mean, it was more just for entertainment because we had Lily out in the canoe and stuff like that. But I mean, to each their own. I know we've done some deep wood stuff, and we brought no technology, period.
Absolutely.
Like our phones didn't work, no music, no nada. And then we've done little white trips where we've actually brought like a radio and stuff like that. And I mean, I've seen benefits to both.
Yeah, or we've gone camping and hiking with people who have brought their own musical instruments and provided the music for our campsite.
Which is my absolute most favorite thing ever. Marcus, if you're listening, I'm talking to you, bud. But anyway, yeah. So let's just keep going right ahead because I do know there is a fair bit to cover, and I don't want to... I'm going to try and get away from our usual habit of circling things.
I mean, we talk about every single one of these points for an entire episode if you really wanted to, I think. So, and then I think even Steve said this as well, just kind of the slowing down, the unplugging, the getting out into nature. That slower pace has different low intensity stimuli and provides the body sensations that are different than the ones that we interact with when we're indoors, doing our work and what have you. So that slower pace, the green light, that reduction in the cortisol and the adrenaline, and the reduction in blood pressure all lead to a reduction in stress. So those are the actual components that make you feel that I'm in nature and I feel better. That's really the mechanics behind that feeling. Yeah.
So, I mean, in correlation to that, where it's a slower pace, you're reducing stress, it's obviously going to improve your mood a little bit.
Right. So the second benefit is an improvement in overall mood and focus. So you can say it's related to the reduction of stress. Obviously, if you reduce stress, you're going to improve mood. If you exercise, you're going to improve mood. If you're reacting to green light instead of blue light, you're going to improve mood. But what comes with that is, for a lot of people out there, it comes with a reduction in symptoms that are related to anxiety, depression, anger. It reduces the symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder by improving impulse control and your working memory, and aids in your concentration. The sunlight itself actually increases your serotonin production, and it allows for better sleep, which obviously in turn increases your energy levels and your mood. So all of that put together increases your creativity, it improves your self-esteem, and it generally makes you more calm, positive, focused. You may feel more peaceful or at ease. All of those things create that byproduct of really just a better overall mood. And I thought it was funny when I was doing some research on this before that, of course, they study how they can bring some of these benefits into workplaces and offices and homes and, maybe very urban areas that don't have a lot of green space. And it's funny to note that even adding a plant or even pictures of nature to an indoor room or an office space has been proven to improve your mood, and that even introducing the sounds of nature. So we all know those CDs that you used to have in the store. You could press the button and every sound would play, like the waves or the crickets.
Sounds of nature.
Yeah, or the bird songs. They all have recuperative effects on the body physically. So even those tiny things. So if you can imagine you're sitting in your office, listening to bird sounds, staring at a nature picture. So that's one level of increased mood. Now imagine if you're doing that outside and you have the actual sunlight on your face and you're getting the actual green light into your eyes and you're getting the better air into your lungs. It's really just a tiered, every kind of step up you take to being actually in nature, to being in deep nature, to being in an aquatic environment, for example. Every step that you can take getting closer to nature is just going to enhance and really highlight all of those benefits in your body. It's going to increase the levels even faster and make the benefits happen faster.
So just want to take a real quick pause just to say hi to a first-time, I don't want to say viewer, first-time live show viewer.
Yeah.
So I think the handle is 46 and 2. I think I decoded that right. But welcome to the show. Super stoked to have you on as a first-time live listener. And greetings from Europe. So I told you before, we cover clear across the globe. It's one of the amazing things of what we do here at Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. We get to give our information to everybody out there that's willing to listen anywhere in the world. And I think it's just amazing. So once again, 46 and 2, welcome to the show. If you have any questions, feel free just to post them in the comments, just like you did that. We will answer them in real time as we can get to them. So anyway, we're going to jump back on topic here, and we were just talking about how it improves mood, focus, and all that good stuff. And as a result of that, just kind of going linear on this, we do know that a better mindset means a healthier body and a more healthy and healing body. Is that not mistaken?
Right. So the third point is that it helps speed healing. So not only can you use all of these benefits to help you in your everyday as a regular course of action, but you can also use it when you need additional healing properties due to any kind of like an injury or a recuperation that's happening physically with your body. There's some really amazing research that's come out about the different effects that being outside can have on us while we're healing. And research shows that a patient who spends time outdoors, for example, while they're healing from surgery, actually require fewer painkillers, have fewer complications, and they reduce their overall recovery time and have shorter hospital stays.
So just before we bounce over that, real world example of that was me with my hernia surgery.
Right.
The first little bit that I was stuck inside and do nothing, it felt like it was taking so long for anything to heal. Once I got to that point where I could move ever so slightly and I got out, just being on the deck, sitting in the sun and stuff, it felt like it was an exponential healing after that. Like it got better quicker, and once I got better, I felt better and could out move a little bit more, and that made things better again. So I mean, it really is kind of real stuff, honestly. That's just my example. I'm sure anybody that's been out in nature enough, you'll probably have your own examples too, but bottom line, if you're wondering if it works, I think it does, 100%. And I mean, from a guy that's been beaten up a lot in the course of his lifetime and being outside at the same time, generally I heal pretty quick. You know what I mean? So
And that's the thing, right? Anecdotally, we know that there are lots of stories that show this actually taking place, see this healing happen, and this mood improve, and all of these things taking place. But then we kind of wonder, if you're like me and you need to know the ins and outs of everything, why this happens. We know it does. We think it does. We tell each other it does. But how does it, if it does? So a lot of it, I think, has to do with the sunlight itself and the vitamin D that our bodies create when we're interacting with sunlight. Vitamin D supports the immune system, and it energizes T cells, which over time, they fight infection. And for the benefit of vitamin D therapy, so again, this is a whole kind of subsection of the nature therapy in general. But if you're just going for vitamin D therapy, so if you're just going to sit in the sun and have it aid your healing, you really only need 5 to 15 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week in the sunlight during the summer months. And that is really all it takes for your body to activate that sunlight and create the vitamin D that your body needs to speed up all of these processes. It might be a little bit longer in the winter, depending on where you're at on the globe. But yeah, I was surprised if you put it at the bottom end of 5 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, you could just be sitting out in the sunlight and reaping all of these benefits, and not even really have thought about it until you actually do it. So I thought that was interesting. And then, so it's not just the sunlight and the vitamin D, of course, but there's even plant-based substances that are in the air in our environments that help boost our immunity and speed our healing. And respiratory health is actually greatly increased with this access to fresh air and to all of the plant kind of microorganisms that are available in the air in these areas.
can I just make a little bit of an assumption here? Maybe I'm jumping too far off track here, but I mean, you're getting out into nature. So even for us here that live in a rural area, we still travel into town and stuff like that. We're not that far apart. Or far away from town, and even more so if you're in a city and stuff like that, there's always a little bit of lingering pollution, for lack of a better explanation. I mean, there's the vehicles going by, there's the industry, there's stuff like that. I'm not talking like the stuff is raining down from the sky, but there's always a little bit of lingering stuff in the air. I'm sure you notice it when you go into town. I notice it when I go into Halifax. You know it. As soon as I start getting anywhere near Halifax, like, oh, there's that smell again. It's a different smell. It smells like something else. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just I notice it. And getting away from that into nature, and when all you're really breathing is kind of that fresh air and the smell of trees and stuff like that, like it's noticeable, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, you generally will obviously find the freshest air with the highest air circulation in areas that are more open, like an open field, that would give you more relief from pollution than, say, just sitting on a riverside in an urban area. So that's definitely a component of it as well, is just getting that fresh air. But I do find that people will say, like, oh, I can't go out in the city because, the air pollution or the smog, or maybe even things like allergies or asthma or other respiratory diseases like COPD or what have you. But it's interesting to note that, too. It's surprising to learn that indoor concentrations of air pollutants are actually 2 to 5 times higher than outside environments. And that's including in, like, smoggy and polluted environments. So still, in general, being outside is still preferential to being inside, even when you have like poor air quality. Now, again, providing that you don't have an additional, kind of an issue like an asthma or what have you, that, have a specific trigger to that you have to avoid because it's especially high today or what have you. I mean, there's certain, medical reasons you might need to avoid a certain air pollutant outdoors if you're in a filtered environment inside. But just in general, just to know that the indoor air pollutants are often 2 to 5 times higher than the outdoor ones, regardless of kind of air quality outside. So it's still better to be outside than in. The other one that I thought was interesting for speeding healing, this one really goes to my roots of childcare, of, educating children and playing with children outdoors in nature. And that, again, anecdotally, oh, it's good that for them, eat a little mud or eat a little dirt or get dirty or, be exposed to bacteria, that kind of general thing that we say to children to be outside and get dirty, actually has a basis in science. So the microorganisms that are found in nature that aren't really overall that dangerous can actually run practice drills with our immune system, in a manner of speaking. So it helps prepare our body for more serious infections, which means if you live your life in a completely sterile environment, your immune system can lose its ability to recognize what is and what is not dangerous, which then can lead to a microorganism that it's coming across that may not be potentially dangerous, but leads to chronic inflammation in the body. So ultimately, this means that getting muddy once in a while is really good for you. It builds your immune system. So that's something we say to one another, but it does have that basis in science of having that exposure to those microorganisms that aren't dangerous and building up our tolerance, building up our responses, increasing our immune system's capacity for dealing with it later when it is dangerous.
So what you're telling me is at the end of every show when I say get out there, get dirty, and have fun, I'm actually telling people to go out there and improve your health.
That's right. Yeah, you want to get dirty. You want
See?
to eat a little speck of dirt.
Old Robbie's looking out for you folks out there. I mean, we joke, but it is true. Look at just recently, once again, where hand sanitizer and stuff like that has become such a big thing. They're already starting to do little researches and surveys and stuff like that that say it could have a big impact on our general ability to fight viruses and stuff like that, because we've been sanitizing ourselves so much. If we start slipping away from that or get away from it at all, it's kind of like you've gotten rid of this whole defense to your body.
Well, I mean, you can see it again if you take it back to children in school environments and childcare settings right now. There's a hugely different approach to how often you are enforcing children to wash their hands and to sanitize and to sterilize their play environments. That's definitely increased over I'm just reading a comment here, but that's definitely all increased now with children. Obviously we would make them wash their hands, before they ate, or we're putting their hands in their mouth, go wash your hands. But now, we have maybe 6 to 10 times a day that we're asking children to wash their hands and sanitize, just because we're trying to slow and stop the spread of a virus. But ultimately, it's probably leading in the long run to less exposure to these less dangerous microorganisms that actually help build their immunity as children. So it'll be interesting to see if that has a long-term impact as the children from this generation kind of grow over the next 5 to 10 years, and see if their lack of eating dirt, a little less than normal, has any long-lasting health impacts, I think.
And I mean, we're still just making assumptions here and hypotheses and stuff like that, so time will tell. But anyway, enough with the doom and gloom. This does still, getting out there and all this good stuff, still supports healthy children at the end of the day, does it not?
It supports healthy children, and it also supports graceful aging.
What do you mean by graceful aging?
It means becoming the best and most healthy version of yourself that you can be for your elder years. It means giving your body the best chance that it has to retain its strength and ability as you age. And having spend time in nature, you will actually increase the likelihood of better health as you get older. So if you start just with the children, I have a study that I found that I thought was really interesting. It happened in 2020. It included over 10,000 children between the ages of 9 and 11. And it found that children who spent time outside at recess, more time, were 22% less likely to develop nearsightedness than their peers. So eye health
is Mom talking to Ben?
Hi, Betty.
No, we're talking to everybody out there. You want to say hi?
1 second. We'll be right back here.
Say hi.
Say hi.
Come on over. So this is the daughter that we were speaking of earlier in the show. This is Lily.
Hi, Lily.
She likes to join us occasionally.
Here, can I take one
All right.
air freshener?
Off to bed.
No, we're going to head to bed.
Off to bed.
No, I want one air freshener.
Off to bed. So, while Mel is getting Lily back off to bed there, I think, like she was saying, honestly, I'm not going to lie. She kind of had the most of the information for this, as you guys can see. But, yeah, getting out there, getting into the woods, getting out into nature, it's definitely going to improve your health for a magnitude of reasons. And, I mean, Mel's listed a lot of them off there, and she's back. Good, I don't have to cover it anymore.
He was struggling.
I was, because, I mean, it's your ship.
Well, I was trying to very smoothly transition into eye health, but of course we got interrupted. So my point is that children who spend time outdoors are 22% less likely to develop nearsightedness than their peers who do not. So eye health is a key part of the health benefits of being outdoors. We're going to cover it actually again here in a second with the aging population. But for children, there's a window of time that they form kind of their eyes' strengths. And if you're outside, you can look at things far away. You can look at things close up. You have different light filtering through your eyes. You have shadows. You have clouds transitioning overhead. And all of these things build eye health in children. And it's not something that you can reverse by spending time out in nature as an adult. It's something you have to do as a child. If you spend time outside, you can kind of give yourself the best chance for really healthy eyes.
And that kind of makes sense. Once again, getting to modern day with all the technology, a good deal of children do spend a lot of time on screens. I mean, look at our school systems. Nothing against school systems. Not attacking school systems, but it's pretty common now for them to use Chromebooks around this area anyway, which is great. I mean, it expands things massively, but it does limit that outside time a little bit.
Right, and I mean, as even as, you know, forthright of a advocate for play in nature for children that I am, obviously, I mean, I'm here on Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. I have a background in nature and bushcrafting and all of those things. So obviously I use it daily educating children. But I don't also remove screens. Everything in moderation, everything has its purpose and its place. We're in a society where these children will need to have access to and ability with technology. It's not the devil. But does that mean that they don't need to spend time outside because they've played, you know, a fun tree identifying game indoors on their computer? No, of course not. You can't take away your outside time and replace it with screen time. But you can, you know, implement technology into your daily learning. So I'm really middle of the road on that, which a lot of people find interesting because they think that I would be all about being outside and no screen time ever. But that is actually not my style. So I mean, eye health is one very specific and researched, proven advantage for children to be outdoors. But beyond that and more all-encompassing, there is a study from Denmark of over 900,000 residents, so nearly 1 million people, born between 1985 and 2003. And they found that children who lived in neighborhoods with more green space had a reduced risk of many psychiatric disorders later in life, including depression, anxiety, mood disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, substance use disorders. And for those with the lowest levels of green space exposure during childhood, the risk of developing mental illness was 55% higher than for those who grew up with an abundant green space. So, almost 1 million people, 55% higher chance of developing a mental illness if you don't have access and abundant exposure to green space as a developing human being.
Could it be, and I'm just snowballing here, I don't know any scientific method, but could it just be because you're free to be yourself in nature and less judgment going on in general?
I mean, I'm sure a lot of those kind of mood stabilizing benefits of being in nature are in effect for children as well. So you'd be reducing all of those stress hormones and increasing all of those mood boosting ones. So there's definitely a component to that, I would say. But I don't think it's as simple as that. I think it's really just having all of those benefits combined on a developing body, giving it the best chance that it has for success and for a strong sense of self and capability. When you're outside playing in nature, one of the biggest reasons that we say kids should be in nature is that so they can take risks. Calculated and supervised and safe risks. When they do that, they build a capacity within themselves to understand that they are capable in and of themselves as a human being, as an individual and unique person, to accomplish tasks and to fulfill activities and to meet goals. And all of those things contribute to really the best outcome for all children. So I think it's a lot of things all working together. But I did find with such a huge group number of almost 1 million people and showing so clearly that 55% increase in likelihood of having, a pretty significant mental impact on your health was really relevant to this conversation.
So, just to get away from the kids a little bit, you did mention
So-
graceful aging, which is something slightly near and dear to me as it's coming and coming and coming. Time ever marches on. So what do you mean by that?
So adults over 70 who spend time outdoors. So again, this doesn't have to be, backpacking through the Andes. It can be just, walking to the grocery store instead of driving, or it can be just sitting on a park bench, bird watching. It can just be a little trip out the door to sit on a picnic table and have lunch with your grandchildren. But all of those things, spending the time outside for our aging population, absolutely correlated to fewer sleep difficulties, to less aches and pains, groans and moans, and to that they enjoy improved mobility and their ability to perform daily tasks were increased. So kind of like a rolling stone gathers no moss. If they keep that mobility going, if they make the effort to even just walk outside their door and sit on the bench instead of sitting inside on the couch, and if they can reap all those benefits of the sunlight exposure, the vitamin D, the circulated air, all of those things we already talked about, then, there's a significant health impact that's pretty measurable, especially for adults over 70. So we already talked about the breathing and the respiratory diseases. Better breathing becomes more important as we age, obviously, and having that access to the high air circulation is really beneficial. So there's one more study that I'm going to throw at you, and this one is for the aging population. It's a 2016 study that examined the relationship between local greenery and mortality risk. It followed 100,000 women for 8 years. So again, a very significant
Sample
study
size.
base. Yeah. And the women with the most greenery in their neighborhoods. So this is just not even like going into the woods on an adventure. This is just your neighborhood green space, they were 34% less likely to die from respiratory disease. So again, that access to the air, the being outside, at all stages of your development and your life and your growth, have lasting and significant impacts.
Yeah, and I can totally see that because, I mean, once again, more of that fresh air, you have the benefits of the lower blood pressure and stuff like that, and the big one, better sleep quality. Even I notice that I get a way better sleep when I'm out in the woods. Even if I don't sleep as comfortably, I sleep more soundly, I find. And when I come back, I'm of course bushed, and I have a couple great nights of just absolute comatose in the bed because now you got the benefit of that nice comfy bed after being out in the woods banging around for a while. But let's talk about that better sleep.
Yeah, it might not be so much when you're out in the nature, but better sleep is my fifth and final physiological benefit for nature. And it actually comes down to little cells in your eyeballs. They need sunlight in order to set our circadian rhythm or our internal clock. Especially early morning light is the most beneficial if you're interested. If you go out in the early morning and literally let your eyes absorb the light, obviously don't stare at the sun. That's not what I'm saying. Wear eye protection. That's fine. The early morning light will help your body set your bedtime routine of all things. It sets your kind of start time, which gives you your rhythm until it's really winding down time. And that benefit even becomes more important as our eyes age because our absorption levels decline. So our ability to take in that light with those cells and use it the way we need to declines. So elderly people should probably spend a little bit more time out in the direct sunlight to make sure that process can happen. And it's actually one of the leading reasons why older people have trouble with sleep. And experience more sleep disturbances. It's because they're not getting that sunlight absorption through their eyes, and they're especially not getting it at the right time of day. So, yeah, it's an interesting little factoid. So exposing yourself to sunlight can improve your sleep because it helps you feel more tired at night. This is, again, just our natural body rhythm that takes over. It shortens the time it takes to fall asleep, and it improves the quality and the depths of your sleep. So, again, just that access to sunlight, filtering through the cells in our eyes, works to create our body systems, and regulates all of our sleep patterns to basically our ultimate optimal. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay, I wasn't following there for a second.
To our kind of optimal level. So, yeah.
All right, so you did mention there was the 5 big physiological factors. Now, we've hit all those physiological factors. Where else did you want to go for this, Melissa?
Well, I just wanted to say that I also, during all of this research, thought that it was interesting that in Japan, and it's become more common to say around the world now, is forest bathing. It's not bathing in the forest. It's bathing yourself in the forest. It's just being in nature, spending time in a forest environment for the purpose of improving physical and mental health. So if people are struggling to get outside to find reasons to be there, you can just go out and take a forest bath. You're not bathing. I mean, you can if you want. That's your jam.
If that's your thing.
But you can just be in nature for the purpose of improving your mental and physical well-being. It's absolutely valid. It works. We know it does. There are studies and research to back it up. So just being in nature is and of itself an activity enough. Now, of course, I do have some therapeutic activities in nature.
I was just about to say, way back at the start of this, you mentioned, we're going to talk about some activities.
I know, the activities are kind of my favorite part, but I really wanted to get the understanding of why to be in nature first and the benefits that it has, and then move on to, well, what are we going to do while we're out there? Because you can actually compound the benefits of being in nature with further therapeutic activities. So if you're doing therapeutic activities in nature that is by itself therapeutic, you're really getting double benefits.
And I know you do one of these yourself.
So I mean, there's simple activities in nature. So like we were talking about, especially with our elderly citizens who maybe can't do the more adventurous things, but still want to do the forest bathing, still want to reap the benefits, still want to be outside and get that, even 5 to 15 minutes a day. You can go on a nature walk, you can have a picnic, you can garden or be wildlife watching or cooking or barbecuing outdoors or even stargazing. So, I mean, that's going to eliminate the sunlight benefits, but it has, therapeutic properties of its own.
No, you can go to bed. Our little one's back at us.
She's not having it. She does not like it when we're both on here.
How about I slip out, and you chat, and I'll handle this one. All right, 1 second, folks. We got to kind of wiggle ourselves around each other.
Yeah, our chairs are very close together.
Office area is a little small. I'm into the printer. Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, I'm trying to get back. It's more difficult than it looks. Okay, so, right, so there's those kind of simple activities that you can do. So you're still getting a little bit of exercise. You're still, out in nature getting the benefits of it, but you're not maybe necessarily putting in the hard work exercise. So there's more exercise activities like hiking or paddling, rock climbing, mountaineering or canyoneering, depending on kind of your area's landscape. Skiing or biking or snowshoeing or skating or surfing, etc., etc., etc. All of those things, when you add exercise and hard physical kind of actions on top of the nature benefits you're already receiving, is going to boost your body even further. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to, you're going to lose weight. You're going to increase all of the production of the healthy hormones and levels that you want to be at. So that kind of comes with its own added benefit. Of course, you can do your hobby exercises like photography and drawing or painting art, fishing or hunting or trapping, primitive skills, playing music, which we already talked about, or camping. Okay, hold on 1 second. We're going to do a crazy shuffle.
Real quick
again.
Shuffle. And we're back-ish kind of dealio.
And all those hobby exercises can add to you on a mental health level. So you're taking the therapeutic benefits of nature, and then you're adding in a mental health component of a hobby or something that you particularly enjoy or spending your time doing, and you're increasing those levels again. So you have your simple exercise activities, your exercise activities, your hobby exercises or activities, and then you can trickle down into your forest therapy or your more ecotherapy exercises or activities in nature. So these are the ones where you get into like yoga or meditating, mindfulness practices and barefoot practices. There's a lot of things that you can do in nature that just help you find that calm place, that are mood stabilizers and enhancers in and of themselves as an activity. So you're adding that benefit on top of your nature benefit. So you have, quite a few courses of action that you can take depending on your activity level, depending on your goals. If you really want to work on your mental health, if you really want to work on your physical health, if you have an aging body or a young body, and what that body needs to function at its optimal kind of mode. And you have a lot of options for activities that you can do to enhance all of those benefits that you might be doing. I do all of the above, I think, but I do have a special place for yoga and meditation. I attended university at St. Mary's University in Halifax here in Canada, and I've totally unrelated. I initially studied criminology and psychology with the goal of becoming a police officer. Long story, but I took a bit of a wild card class, if you want to call it that, on Eastern religions, which I'm not going to get into, but my point in saying this is that through that class, and then a bit of a sub-minor and some extra studying at the local Shambhala Center there in Halifax, I actually ended up studying meditation and mindfulness very in depth, kind of by accident, because it became such a passion of mine, to take it really as far as I could and to learn as much as I could and to study under some really amazing leaders in the community around the Buddhist temple there. So when I started that practice, I really learned quickly that it has a lot of benefits, obviously. It's kind of a stereotypical wellness, but that's for a reason, because yoga and meditation are great ways to improve and maintain good mental health. Yoga is an excellent way to practice balance, patience, sitting in discomfort, both physically and mentally. And meditation actually has been shown to shrink the part of your brain that controls fear and anger. So you actually have just a physical reduction in your capacity to be angry and fearful, and an increased capacity to remain calm, to problem solve, to work through things in a manner that's really thought out and not reactive. So when you combine that with nature environment, what you're really doing is giving yourself the best opportunity for all of the benefits that those combined things have to offer you. So, like here in our local area, we have a weekly yoga practice at our local provincial park beach. It is a beautiful saltwater beach on the Atlantic Ocean. It is the ancestral hunting grounds of the Mi'kma'ki, which is our indigenous people here in Nova Scotia. And you can tell that there's a reason for that. It's a spiritual place, whether you're spiritual or not. And it has a lot of really intense kind of mindfulness, meditation, thoughtful, kind of provoking aspects to it when you sit and reflect on it during a yoga practice. So I've definitely done a ton of yoga in nature, both at the beach, which was actually another subsection I was going to say, the difference between green spaces and blue spaces. So the beach is a great place to practice. In nature, in the forest environment, landscape is a great place to practice yoga and mindfulness and meditation. It really connects you to just kind of yourself. It allows you to focus a lot better and to maybe be a little easier on yourself when you're doing it out in nature, because it's an imperfect environment and it's kind of more allowable to be imperfect in your practice. As opposed to maybe being in a yoga studio. It can be a little intense sometimes. But when you're out on a beach and everybody's having trouble balancing because you're on sand, on a blanket, you're not in a perfectly flat studio on a mat. There's a lot more forgiveness that can be allowed to a person practicing in nature. And then you can kind of internalize that and take it into your week. So I highly recommend it. It's very therapeutic for me in a lot of ways, and I know it is for a lot of other people in my class as well. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so we have discussed quite a bit here tonight. We are coming up on around our hour aspect there. The last thing I know we both want to talk about, we mentioned it at the first there, a little bit of liabilities and safety. So,
yeah.
Why don't you touch liabilities? Safety, sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't quite done.
Sorry.
That's okay. Because I mentioned it, but I wanted to go back. The green spaces versus blue spaces. This is a very new topic that's coming up in therapy and nature. We all know about, and now you know even more about, the benefits of green spaces, green light on our bodies, but they're finding that blue light from aquatic environments, I'm not talking about blue screen light, they're just calling it blue light, so it can be confusing, but aquatic environments, so oceanside, lakeside, that kind of thing, could actually be more beneficial than green light. So if you feel especially calm when you're out on the water or at the beach, that could be why. So I thought that was interesting. And then just to piggyback off of that, in case anyone's interested, there was also an additional benefit found if you went from your local space. So again, all of the benefits are there. If you're in your local green space, that's great. Do it. Spend your time there if you can. But if you have the opportunity to trek into a remote space, it's actually been reported that there's more of a connection to nature, and that the individuals felt more restored after visiting rural and coastal locations, or deep woods remote locations, than they did after spending time in the urban green spaces, because they're deemed to be of high environmental quality. So things like nature reserves or protected habitats or national parks, they were all more beneficial than the areas with the lower biodiversity and the like more local traffic areas. So be outside if you can, be outside near water if you can, be outside in deep forest if you can. So if your circumstances allow and the opportunity arises for you to do a remote trek, the benefits can only increase. So I thought all of those points were super interesting. Oh, and the other thing that I mentioned really quickly for more of the ecotherapy side of activities was the barefoot walking or barefoot practices. Again, that's something that I do. And I think that it's interesting to note that the benefits of walking barefoot, this leads into the safety talk because we'll get to there. There is some safety concerns that come along with this. But first of all, the benefits are better control of your foot position, improvements in your balance, your proprioception, and your body awareness, which can actually end up helping with pain relief, better foot mechanics, which can lead to improved mechanics of the hips, knees, and core. You can maintain the appropriate range of motion in your foot and your ankle, as well as your adequate strength and stability within your muscles and ligaments as you age. So this is another one that moves into our aging population. It can give you relief from improperly fitting shoes, which can cause a whole host of foot issues and deformities. And it gives you stronger leg muscles, which support your lower back region and leads to better spine health. So, do certain individuals need supportive footwear? Absolutely. I'm one of them. I have very intense ankle damage in both of my ankles. They can roll over very quickly, and I can just absolutely tear every ligament in my ankle with zero effort. It leads to intense physical therapy, like months on crutches, loss of work. I've been down this road a lot of times. I absolutely am an individual who needs supportive footwear when I'm out adventuring. But I also am very passionate about practicing barefoot walking. And I do it usually on a campsite once we've arrived, in an area that's a little bit safer. So that does lead into our safety. So obviously, if you're outside and you're in nature, you want to make sure you have your sunscreen. You want to make sure you have your protective clothing. You want to make sure you have your sunglasses. If you're going for your light therapy, 5 to 15 minutes of, light into your eye cells, maybe you can take your glasses off for 5 minutes. That's fine. But you definitely don't want to look straight at the sun. You want to, make sure that you're maintaining all of those being outside health practices that we're always doing. And then obviously with, if you're interested in engaging in any of the barefoot practices, start slow, start low, do it on a safer, maybe a grass field environment before you try to do it on a, rocky water side. There's certain things you can do to mitigate the risks to your feet and to injure your body. So, I don't want anyone out there hurting themselves just to get outside, but, there's these steps you can do to reduce those risks and to, practice makes perfect. And really we never stop practicing and we never get to perfect. So just don't expect too much of yourself. And then of course there's like yoga modifications. So don't feel like even if you do decide you want to join, a yoga class on the beach, don't feel like you have to do everything the way the teacher does it and the way the other participants are doing it. That's not what yoga is about. Number one, it's about your own individual practice. It's not about comparing yourself to others, but also two, it's really not expected. And there's lots of modifications for yoga positions that can make it easier on your body, especially if you've experienced injuries in the past. Or if you have any kind of, like a tricky knee or a sore back or, there's lots of things to work around that. Chair yoga exists for a reason, and it's equally and as enthusiastically relevant and fine. Like, do it. If that's your level of yoga, you'll still get benefits from it, and it's still so much better to do it than to not do it at whatever level and capacity you're able to. So... yeah, so there's a lot of kind of safety things around these activities and being out in nature in general. And I know you and Ben have talked about, you've probably done a whole episode on safety in the woods. Not probably, I know you have because I listened to it. So you can go back and just, it all applies. It's all interconnected. It's all the same conversation. But this one is really just about how nature can make you the best version of yourself in your own kind of health and wellness journey. Okay, I think I'm done now.
All right, so the last of it there was a big mouthful, but it was all important stuff. And I guess just to end the show off on our side, once again, we're not medical professionals in any way, shape, or form. We still highly encourage you to go out and do your own research and stuff like that. And of course, we recommend that you talk to your doctor if you do any major lifestyle changes, or you're going to try something that you think is going to be a little beyond your fitness level. And if you want to make sure you can do it, definitely, get your a real medical opinion and stuff there. But this is backed by research. A lot of like what what Melissa was talking about here tonight. This was real studies, real research. This is stuff she's looked up, she's studied. So there is some truth to it, and there's a lot of good information here. Once again, make of it what you will. Take it all basically as we have given it to you. Once again, we encourage you to do your own research before you take it as the final be all say all to the word, because everything's changing day to day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I'm not trying to counter-indicate any, of your doctor's orders if you're supposed to be
No,
indoors
not
when
at
there's
all.
low air quality, or, if you can't walk 5 kilometers and I told you that you could walk your grandma to the grocery store. You have to use a little bit of common sense with this. But again, like I said, that first step is just getting a little bit of sunlight in your eyeballs. Looking at green light instead of blue light, having children experience nature for the benefits to their eyesight and to their physiological and psychological growth as people, to their sense of self-esteem, to your sense of self-esteem as an adult. All of those things can be, reaped without really risking yourself. I'm not saying you have to take a 6-week mountain adventure in order to get any of these benefits, obviously, right? You can increase and enhance these benefits by doing further activities, by combining it with exercise, by increasing your time spent outdoors and in nature, by being able to access waterways and deep forest or protected parks. But it's not necessary. It's all beneficial. Do whichever of it, as much of it as you can, and you'll see at least improvement in your mood, I think. I think that's the number one thing, right? Everyone says they feel better after they've been outside.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that alone is benefit
unless
enough.
you hate being outside, and there are individuals that do.
But then you find your little hobby activity. If you want to take pictures or play a guitar song or something, you can incorporate something to make it enjoyable for yourself.
Photography is a great one for tech people out there, but that's a whole other episode. To try and wrap it up here tonight, because we did hit our 1 hour.
Yeah.
Tons of great information. Do with it what you will. As Melissa mentioned, just work within the confines of your own limitations and ability. And have fun. As we always say, get out there, get dirty, have fun, because dirty, it's a benefit now.
Microorganisms.
But anyway, folks, thanks for joining us this week, and thank you, Melissa, for joining us. A ton of good information there. If anybody out there has any questions, comments, as Mel said at the start there, you can reach out to the AtlanticBushcraft.ca website, contact us link, that'd be at the top. You can send a message to us, or you can get us on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of that good stuff there. Just Google or whatever your search engine of choice is, Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures, and you're going to get up to a plethora of ways to get in touch with us at this point. But yes, thank you, folks. Thank you, Melissa.
Of course. Thank you again for having me. I'm sure Ben will be back next week, so you don't have to listen to my science anymore. But of course, like Robert said, you can always find me at Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures, even when I'm not on screen. So anytime you have questions that are related to a topic that I popped on to share with you all, I'm more than happy and available to discuss it or answer questions or, whatever. I like all of these things as much as all of you do who are listening, so I don't mind having a chat here and there either.
Alrighty. Have a good night, everybody, thanks to our
everyone.
guests that did join us down here in the comments.
Yeah.
That was great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, 46 and 2. And anybody else that if they popped in there and I missed, thank you for joining us, and we'll see y'all next week. Have a good evening, everybody.